after all the different like delusional ideas that we shared, we arrived at breaking the world record. There's no way to prepare for something like that, right? What do? Do you first do 56 hours and say, okay, fine, I can do it now. Let me now do it officially. Guy on Twitter, they're like, you're always wearing the sneakers. This is the only sneaker that you have. I just blocked it. Because that's just my vibe.
The common Nigerian mentality of always know where you come from.
Or more, like, remember the son of whom you are. Like, you can't afford to make mistakes, right? Like, I always live with that awareness, but also that responsibility that, or more, we're in the trenches, but as a first child, I have to be the one to save my family from poverty.
All right. So Tunde, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me.
It's great having you today. So how's your time in London been?
It's been 2 weeks, so just been a lot of back and forth. I really hate taking the train. You know, just like I said, you have to get me a cab because the Elizabeth line, Jubilee line, and it's all just so sweaty in there. So, but I love London. This is my 4th time in London. So, in fact, the first time I ever left Nigeria, the first country I ever traveled to outside Africa was the UK. So, so it holds that special memory for me. So every time I come here, just a reminder of how far I've come from the very first time, and now my reality is a bit different. But yeah, I love being here.
Yeah, amazing.
And what's your favorite parts like in London?
So every time I'm in London, I always stay at Canary Wharf.
I don't stay too far.
You really?
Yeah, like in Canning Town.
I think it's just because my favorite city in the world is New York. So I feel like there's just that appeal that sort of like draws you in, especially if you're a dreamer, right? And someone with a lot of ambition, like to create something truly valuable for the world. So I guess Canary Wharf just like is the epicenter of like, capitalism, you know. And I just like the energy, in the evening I take walks, around the river, and it's just a good sight.
That's interesting you say that.
And everyone is walking fast.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, because a lot of Londoners, they'll say they dislike Canary Wharf because of like the
feels like
concrete jungle of
like
it.
a ghost town.
Yeah, a little bit like Dubai. They like the whole city, like the British nature of
It's true.
the bank and everything. But just going back to what you said about how you've come from a long way. You said you've been traveling a lot recently, and it's a long way from Ikorodu.
It is a long way.
Funny enough, I'm actually partly from Ikorodu. My mom is from Ikorodu. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about, your origins and how you really, from humble beginnings got to where you are today. Tell us about life in Ikorodu.
Okay, that's a long story, but I'll give you the very abridged version of it. So, I grew up in Ikorodu. I'm not from Ikorodu. I'm from, Agoiwe in Ogun State, but I lived in Ikorodu for the most part, the first 21 years of my life. Then I left and I came back. So actually we moved to Ikorodu when I was six years old. So, but I was born in Lagos, Nigeria. And I guess growing up for us was a very humble place, And it's even more interesting that we're saying this now because there was this conversation on Twitter yesterday where everyone was just going bonkers about like nepotism babies and the other one was Lakwo microfinance babies. It's like, what is the opposite of like growing up with extreme privilege? It's like, what is like the extreme end of the other spectrum when you grew up in extreme lack of privilege? And I guess it's just sort of seeing a lot of course, most of it was just internet jokes. But for me, it took me back really to understand why a lot of like my upbringing and childhood, why it has helped me like become the man that I am today. It has helped me build strength of character, because when you come from a place where everything is a fight, everything is survival, you need to fight to earn your place in the world, you get to realize really that your fight is a different one and you just can't compare yourself to other people. And I always had that awareness at a really young age, right? My parents, were not educated, but they tried their best to ensure that we could get our education, right? And it was something that caused my mom a lot of pain, she'd be like, mo fẹ́ kí wọ́n náà tó bá ti dàgbà kó lè sọ̀rọ̀ láàrin àwọn ẹgbẹ́ ẹ̀. Like she'd be able to speak amongst her peers because it was something that, she never had, right? And, asked during the jokes that, what is the like indicator of like the Lapo babies? And I wanted to type an example. I said, the first time I ever got in a private car, I almost strangled myself to death with a seatbelt because I didn't know how to use it. And this was like, I was already like maybe 19 or something before I ever actually sat, shotgun and had to use a seatbelt. And these things, they're similarly like small things for people, who grew up differently. But for we grew up in a different circumstance, like every simple thing like that was a luxury. Right? Being able to go to the hospital, so all these things that people take for granted, it was a luxury for people like us from where we come from, right? But knowing that despite all of this, again, that my fight is different. I have to do more. I have to be more curious. I have to do really well at school. Because in my house, there was no in-between. It's either you're a doctor or you're a failure. There's no, you want to be a YouTuber, whatever. It doesn't. Yeah. So a lot of that pressure growing up, a deep sense of like responsibility to like family, to uplifting family from poverty, a deep sense of a lot of pressure to excel academically, right? And so that was what growing up was like, really.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting, especially because of that whole Nepo and Lapo kind of extreme spectrum. But I think there's connections you can draw to it about the common Nigerian mentality of always know where you come from, because even those Nepo babies, they always have that sense of, I need to excel at everything I do. I need to be the excellent one in class. I need to be above my peers. I need to speak amongst my peers, but be above them. I think that's something we definitely share as in Nigerians as a whole. Even that community you just spoke about as well, like, everybody always feels like you need to help your family. You need to be amongst your family and, just network and see what you can, do for the family. I think that's very key as Nigerians, I'd say.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, if you're born in Nigeria, like life is already leading you like 10-0 already kind of thing. Like being a Nigerian already puts you at like great odds at life. And I think it's the kind of thing, it doesn't even matter whether your parents are rich or it's just you, as soon as you're born, they begin to sort of like hammer that into your head that you have to remember where you're from, because the world is deeply unkind to Nigerians, because like a lot of like the perception of who we are as a people has been tainted by this single story. There's been a lot of times when I tell people I'm Nigerian, they're like, oh, they make the Nigerian Prince Kama jokes. Like if you're someone that travels and you spend a lot of time, within like the like in a very, very global community, you begin to see that people already have this preconceived bias about us as a people, and it is your responsibility to sort of like challenge that and represent us in the best light. So, and that starts to like manifest in many ways from a young age, being excellent, always going the extra mile to prove something, which is why they say Nigerians are proud. But it's not that we are proud, it's just that we have something to prove, and we always have to carry that. And back to the conversation you talked about, the Nepo and Lapo babies, I believe we all to a degree have some level of privilege, right? And 100%. Being able to understand what you have and make the most of it is where it happens, really. It's that place where you lean completely into your unfair advantages, right? For you, it might be that, okay, your parents were extremely poor, but there's this thing that you have. You're quite intelligent. You have this talent. You have to lean completely into it because, man, like I said, your fight is different as long as you're Nigerian. And, privilege doesn't guarantee success. It is what you do with it that truly matters, right?
And would you say you've leaned completely into your privilege with chess? And how would you say, like, it was your first discovery to a chessboard in Ikorodu?
I mean, chess was the only thing I had, right? So when I was 10 years old, I just completed my primary school education. So things sort of like went from bad to worse for my parents.
At 10 years old, that's quite young at primary school.
Yeah. I finished quite early, and my dad, used to be this downfall driver, and he was able to save up money to get his own downfall bus. Then all of a sudden that bus had an accident and we're just back to like ground zero. And my mom used to be a petty trader then, so things were extremely difficult. So my mom just called me one day and said, see, there's no money again to go to school, and you have to stop going to school and learn some trade to support the family. And when that happened, I just accepted it because, you know, there was nothing I could do to change it, right? We could barely even feed, you know, sometimes we go to bed hungry. So it was in that time that I was home that I would always go to this barbing salon, and I saw a chessboard there for the first time, actually. And I remember I would always ask the barber that, this chessboard, what does it do? Like, it will tell you it's a game that makes you very intelligent. And I wanted to be intelligent because, you know, we went to this Bako primary school where I could barely speak English, you know, and because of that, you know, my self-esteem suffered. You know, I had no self-confidence as a child. And so he telling me that it was almost a promise that if you can learn this game and be good at it, that you become very intelligent. So I immediately just committed to that. I kept going back. He wouldn't teach me still, but by just watching, I was able to learn the rules of the game. You know, so I went back home. I made my own chessboard from clay and cardboard. I taught my brother how to play, and that was how I found chess. And eventually I got into school because my mom just walked up to one school and told them that, see, I'll work for you guys as a cleaner. I just let my son come to school, yeah. And that was how I got back to school. And fortunately, the school I attended, UNTAP College, it was one of the only few schools in the entire country that did chess as a subject, right? So
we had chess at a club.
This one was like curriculum. We wrote exams at the end of every term. So that sort of like accelerated, my development. I was exposed to tournaments for the first time. And so I went through life, school, being like really good at chess. You know, my coach realized very early that I was quite gifted, and it helped me go to school on a scholarship, and it helped me find my place in the world. I always say this because for a lot of people, they will never get the luck of finding the one thing, right, that they, even like beyond like academic excellence, like the one thing that's like a talent, they will never really get to discover it because it will always remain as a potential. But thankfully, I was exposed to something that helped me fulfill that potential. And every time I went anywhere, you know, I tell people I'm a chess player, they would always treat me differently. They would always give me opportunity because of it. And I just thought in my head that, and this was in 2018, that what if I could just go back to the place where I grew up and extend the same, you know, privilege to the other children like me that I know, man, if nothing happens, they would just become victims of their parents' poverty, and all their life would only ever play out in that ghetto. And we see this, like, if there are 100 million Nigerians in poverty, how do you think that cycle propagates itself? Right? It's within the family system. You know, the child that misses out on the lottery of birth is born to like a family in the trenches of like Ogun State. Like you see them on the street. Just imagine like you're driving on the road, maybe interstate traveling, and you see some kids in the bush, maybe hawking stuff. Don't you like think that, how would this child ever make it out of here? Like how would they even ever make it in life if something drastic, you know, doesn't happen to them? Like
100%.
It is, and they would also have kids, So it's a very fine system that has like sort of like created this very fine print of like poverty going through that fine cycle of reinventing itself, and it just goes on and until something just sort of happens to break that cycle.
And you think it's through the power of
so for me it was chess because it was what I could do. It was like, it was so disruptive. Like chess is an elitist game. You know, it's a game for like the very cerebral, you know, elite people in society. So how do you take that and take it to a slum, to children that can barely speak English? But that was the idea. It's like to introduce something very disruptive to the kids that can get them to like understand the power of their own minds, to become thinkers. They're hungry, but you're not proposing a solution to give them food because that's
temporary.
Like immediately solves an immediate problem, right? But there's a kind of gratification that is taking like you're taking a much long-term position in their lives, right? To actually enable them to find high conviction in their own ability, and that is something no one can ever take away from them. Like through chess, you're able to instill them with the confidence to do, to become, you know, to try, to learn, to think. and I could boldly say that because that was my own personal story. So that was literally how Chess and Slums started,
Nice.
and that is why Chess.
Kind of transitioning from such an exciting story.
Mhm.
I mean, the point where we all probably knew you from was when you broke the Guinness World Record
Yeah.
in Times Square. I mean, you played chess for, was it about 64 hours?
Mhm.
And you raised over $100,000 for charity.
Mhm.
How was that preparation like mentally and physically for you?
It was last year April. It was my first time in the US. So I was invited to speak at a conference, and it was just in Athens, Georgia. So I went over to New York to see my friend, and we're just like, you know what? Let us do something to raise money for the cause. And after all the different like delusional ideas that we shared, we arrived at breaking the world record. So at the time, the record then was 56 hours. It was set by 2 Norwegian masters, and so we were just going off on a hunch that 56 hours shouldn't be that hard, right? It was extremely hard.
Imagine.
Right. So, but the thing is, there's no way to prepare for something like that, right? What do you do? Do you first do 56 hours and say, okay, fine, I can do it now. Let me now do it officially.
Yeah, you don't run a marathon. Trains run a marathon by running a marathon.
Exactly, right. So it's you need to have a lot of faith in your ability to show up when it truly matters and to see it through to the very end. And that takes a lot of faith. So preparation for me was just having a lot of faith in not just my ability, but in my ability to be tenacious, right? That was what I knew for sure. I didn't know if I could do it physically, but I knew that I was the kind of man that could constantly bend the world to do his will. And being able to do that takes, a different kind of mindset. I know that I'm the kind of man that would never give up on something as long as I believe very deeply in it, right? So those are the two things that I knew I needed, right? Physically, medically, I wasn't prepared. In fact, the day before the world record, I was sick.
Oh, wow.
I wanted to call it off, So I put out an announcement. Nigerians were so excited, and all of a sudden I was nose bleeding. I had a cold, and funny thing, 3 days before that, there was an earthquake in New York for the first time in 200 years.
Oh, wow.
So it just felt like everything was going wrong.
Against you.
But then I just got there to Times Square, and I saw hundreds of Nigerians there waiting with flags. They're like, Tunde, we're going to do this with you. No sleeping, just go up, let's show them what we're made of. And we did it. And of course, the intention at the beginning was to raise money for the charity, which we raised almost 200,000. But it became a national moment that Nigerians from all over the world could share in this moment of Nigerian excellence. We're like CNN, front page New York Times, and it was good to finally see Nigerians in the news for great reason. And that was something everyone could get behind. And so it wasn't just my own personal success. It was
Success for Nigeria.
Success for all of us.
And then why the Times Square? Is there a specific reason you chose such a monumental public space?
That's a good question. And I never actually thought about. Okay, so I'm also like founding board member of an organization called Gift of Chess, which is based, in New York. So we have an office just down the street from Times Square. So it's like a 2-minute walk from Times Square. So from our office, you could literally look at Times Square. And the first time I came to America, I came to New York rather. It was the first place I went to. So it was rich in history, and it just felt like the grandest stage in the world, right? It is the place where you see all of the colorful lights, you see all of the skyliners. I think this is the place for dreamers. And I guess that was why we settled on being where, like, this is like the epicenter of this concrete jungle where dreams are made of. And this is where we solidified.
It's so funny you say that because, like, Michael Jordan, the same thing with him. He only liked to play. He loved to play in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
He said it's the mecca of basketball.
It is.
So, like, New York has got that kind of energy for monumental moments.
Oh, it does, yes. It does. So that was it. But it also came with, like, a lot of adversity because it was extremely cold. And to also use Times Square, you have to pay a lot of money. But thankfully, we didn't have to pay a dime because they made an exception for us.
Wow, that's really nice.
Yeah.
And I know you've kind of touched on, Chess and Slums Africa. Yeah. Currently, where you're at right now, how is it like managing in terms of operations, staff, partnerships?
Yeah.
How is it at the current moment?
So we have, I like to say this, that Chess and Slums is is many moving parts. I'm just like the fine boy that just shows up and just talk about the things that we do. But
spokesperson.
But the truth is, there are a lot of people on the back end that have given a lot of their lives to like holding up, what Chess and Slums is today and what it represents to the world. And the people that show up every day for the children, the teachers, the trainers, the educators, the social media people in the many different capacities. So that is what it takes. It takes a village, right, to build anything meaningful. And I believe for me, as the guy with the delusional ideas and vision, this idealistic world, vision that, every child, regardless of the background, deserve a place in the world. The burden is on me to be able to convince these people that this dream is worth chasing. It's worth making a lot of sacrifices for. So, and that is what I try to communicate as a leader to the team. So we have people, the Chess and Slums team are not just humans, they're superhumans. They're people that have chased this dream with me for the last 8 years. And they're the real heroes of the story. So we have an entire team of people. We have volunteers. We have an entire community of people that fund us, that are donors. Yep. So it continues to expand. And that is what makes any idea truly remarkable, that everyone can find their place in it. So we have like our community outreach project. We currently built an innovation hub in Lagos with Lufthansa, where we train children, every week. And
where in Lagos is that?
It's in Yaba.
Yaba.
Okay. Yeah. So it's in Yaba. We use it to train a lot of the kids in Makoko. So we have like robotics, AI, design classes, chess. So yes, that is what a lot of our operations are right now. Then we do community outreaches where we go to the streets, pick up children from the streets, and we place them back into vocational home, school, reconnect them back with their families. And yes, and now we're sort of like evolving into the next stage of our mission, which is to build the biggest chess institute in the world, for children that are underserved. And that is the one thing that we're sort of like optimizing for now.
Nice. And I know you've spoken a lot about, the positives.
Yeah.
So kind of going into like the challenges, because there are multiple of challenges that you have to navigate.
Yeah.
Especially from 8 years.
Yeah. And there's systemic issues as well in Nigeria. So UNICEF, for example, there's a report that estimates that Nigeria has the highest number of out-of-school children globally, with 10.2 million at the primary level and 8.1 million at the junior secondary level. So this means roughly 1 in 3 Nigerians are not in school. So are there any specific communities, you're looking to reach out to, outside of the current ones that you're focused on?
Yes, of course. So we've hit a lot of roadblocks like through in the last eight years. And so I think one of the most challenging things, of course, there's like the systemic failure. It's a lot of the reasons why we have these children out of school. Poverty underpins everything, right? But it's also a lot of other things, from insecurity to even very small things like broken homes. Like it's insane. So it has been like a culmination of several things underpinned by poverty, right? And this is a crisis waiting to happen. Nigeria likes to brag about its numbers, that we're going to have the youngest youth population in the world in the number of years. But then a youth population that is not educated or skilled will become a liability to the world, right? The immigration crisis is going to get worse. Insecurity is only going to get worse. The area boy, thugs on the streets, all of this. So it will permeate into every single faction of society. So it's something that we're very aware of. And I think it's where we're sort of like taking a stand that how do we scale up our program to be able to like support at systems level. So we're currently like trying to work with the government to like get chess into like schools, into public schools, into more community programs, at that level. But what I find that has also been deeply challenging for me personally is, my mentor would say this, that Tunde, see, no good deed goes unpunished. The day you decide to do good in the world, and decide to be public about it, you're going to face a lot of resistance. Think about Bill Gates, that, is probably one of the only reasons why, like, at least like 10 million Nigerian children don't have polio, and for some reason, he's still like painted as the Antichrist, And
was that the vaccine? I think was that the
yeah. So everyone has theories. I don't know if they're true or not, but I know to a degree that he has also done a lot of good, right? And a lot of people don't have the facts, but they just run with like speculation. But it's just the moment that you decide to do good, or you decide to appear as one that cares about doing good for the world, people would always question your intention, right? And they would always sort of like cast aspersions on that. But you have to do it anyway, right? People say you are trying to exploit a situation, you're trying to exploit some people, while you're actually activists trying to solve the problems for them. And that is just like the mentality of people in the world, and it's something that I felt sometimes even like deeply hurt by. You know, I remember, and this was even like 7 years ago when we first started Chess and Slums. You know, the kids, we train them. We now decided to take them out for a tournament for the first time. And these are kids that have never even been in a car or ever left a community before. And they went to the tournament. They did so well. They won medals and they came back home. They were so proud. They were so happy. And guess what? The community and some of the parents are saying, oh, we took the children out to exploit them, to use them to make money. Then we didn't give them the money. And that was the day I remember I just wanted to give up. This was 7 years ago, right? But all of this to say that, you know, it takes a lot of like selfless passion to create any meaningful change in the world, to stand out and say, I want to impact the world, you know, in this way. I want to use my resource. I want to use my talent. I want to use this. And the purpose behind it would be to serve people. But I tell you that sometimes even the same people you want to serve, they would not always have the patience to like understand your intention, right? And that is the whole, you know, even problem at large with Nigeria and leadership. The moment you're in a position of leadership, people will ask you, right? But you have to constantly show up, you know, for what you believe in. And the only thing that is the truth is the tangible impact you're able to create. So so those are the two things primarily. Like I said, you know, if systemic level, getting chess into schools, into the educational program, because if we're not preparing our children for the future of work, we're still complaining about the 20 million children out of school. How about the several more millions in school that are not learning anything that is relevant to like global markets or to the global economy? So we need to prepare them for that future. So this is how we're thinking about like integrating fully and plugging the work that we do into Nigeria's prosperity.
That's interesting. That actually leads very nicely into my next question. But you've said a lot of things that I really want to talk on.
Yeah.
But so when you came for Connected Diaspora's launch in December of 2024, you spoke a little bit about the importance of critical thinking and how changing this idea of how we teach young children from how to really solve problems, from rota memorization to how to really solve problems.
Exactly,
I think that is the key thing that is typical of Nigerian learning system. Like I can remember in school, I learned from my 2 times table from 1 to 12. Like I could know it off by heart, but I still couldn't do properly long multiplications because it was just a memory thing. So how are you and your institution, your social enterprise, really dealing with and using chess as this tool to develop people's cognitive skills? And how do you think that's important to a country, you know, as insecure and that the problems Nigeria already have? How do you think that's going to help?
I think when we had this conversation was last year, and between then and now, you know, the very fabric of society has sort of like torn a bit more. And I say this because the world is changing at an unprecedented rate, and to me, it's like, why are people just not even like, why is there not panic? Like, why are we just acting so cool? Like, look at what the AI is doing now, right? And we can see how redundant our educational system, even as high up as higher education is. You see, AI is literally obliterating like everything that looks like a job right now. You can do it in seconds. Like, do you know what that means? Like, you could pay like a McKinsey consultant to like $300,000 to do something, but with AI now, you can literally do it in like
couple of minutes.
Just press deep search on ChatGPT.
I'm not even joking. With the same level of excellence, you know, for just $10 per month. Now, what does that really tell us, and what should be Africa's place in this rapid change that is happening? Now, as far as like data, compute, infrastructure, we don't have that. So we sort of like have to leapfrog a lot of like the baseline of like preparing for the future, because we really don't have that. And trying to set that up now when we don't even have electricity is just, it's a fool's errand. There's no point now because there's a lot of catching up to do. But what I think we could do is, which is like going to be like the primary thing for like preparing our generation for that future, is we need to raise a new generation of critical thinkers. It has now become extremely valuable. The most valuable skill in the world is the ability to think critically and to have a very high agency. So there's two things in this world of AI.
Define agency.
So agency in this context is being able to like, it's like ownership, right? Being able to act, based on will. And a lot of people don't have that, right? And especially for as we're like raising and socializing our kids, is we're teaching them to be like conformist to a system, right? So being able to think outside that is having, so it's like the many different layers of like agency. Some people have very high agency, some people have really low agency. They wait to be told. Now with this AI thing, you see some people are already building crazy stuff with it. Those are the people that with high agency, and those are the people that would win eventually, right? So we need to sort of like raise our children to have both things, right? To be able to think critically, right? To be able to use AI in a way that actually solves problems, and to just a lot of like the other things that we're learning right now is we're literally setting up the kids to go and start competing against AI. So they're going through like 15 years of education to go and do something that AI can do in literally seconds. So again, being able to like prompt the AI properly now has become a valuable skill. And to be able to get there, it's like you need to be able to teach the AI in itself. And a lot of that comes from this depth of thinking. So for us, it's like we're using chess as a way to teach the kids how to think, not what to think, but how to think within a specific frame. Right, so chess is extremely valuable for that, right? To help like young learners begin to think through complexity, begin to creatively think about something. So chess just gives them like a premise to do that in a very fun and engaging way. But of course, that having like that process, that frame in your mind, is transferable, right? It's applicable in other fields, right? So chess helps us prepare the kids, and it's something that we're now seriously like trying to do. Like we're preparing the kids using chess as a tool, not just for like competition, but we have like a chess and math curriculum now. We have like a chess and AI thing that we do at the hub. We have this chess and like design thinking thing that we do. So it's been interesting. It's still a lot of like trying out new stuff.
Yeah.
But then we're making progress in that.
Yeah. No, that sounds amazing. And what you're doing is very, very revolutionary in the sense that, typical businesses and typical new age, kind of industries in Nigeria kind of centered around, VC, tech, very money-making scheme, not a lot of social enterprises like yourselves. What would you say the importance is of these kind of social enterprises?
Honestly, you can't blame people because,
obviously,
again, one of the greatest traps, especially for young people, and I always tell young people this, is one of the greatest traps, one of the most important things you need to be very conscious of is what you want to work on. Now, there's this trap of prestige and money. Now, money in itself isn't as dangerous because there's some things you won't just do for money, even if you're guaranteed or promised a lot of money. You won't do OnlyFans for money now.
Consider this.
No, never.
But what is extremely dangerous is when you mix money and prestige. So prestige should be, I'm a founder, I'm a VC guy, I work in investment banking. So all those things that society has branded as like sort of like indicators of success, right? So it's the cool thing. Most young people now want to go to SF, become tech bros. It's this cool thing. But the truth is, it's a trap. And it's a trap because it draws you in and you realize that there's a lot of emptiness beneath it. I know a lot of founders that are just extremely miserable. And I know a lot of founders, that got into like fintech in Nigeria because that is where a lot of VC capital was flowing to. But their skills at time could have been better applied solving an actual problem, right? So the first thing is to be aware of that. And the beautiful thing is that if you choose a path that is less traveled, and if you do it well enough and long enough, it will become prestigious eventually. And that was like the journey I set out on 10 years ago. A lot of my friends were getting into tech, crypto, they were jackpotting. And I said I wanted to do chess, as a charity thing. And it didn't make sense to any of them, but I stuck with it because I knew that there was such an important gap in society, and somebody had to stand in that gap. And it was someone that understood like the poverty on a deep level, and also I had privilege. So I was finally situated to use my talent of chess to help bring up the kids by giving my time, and my gifts to teaching them, to enabling them, to empowering them. And by solving that problem for the kids, the world started to pay attention to them. And that is what has made the Chess in Slums project successful, right? So that passion, that purpose, that impact-driven vision that you have, is always an important frame to think about what you want to work on, rather than just profit or what makes me look good or what society would respect me for. I spoke at the DLD conference in Germany. It's one of the biggest tech conferences. Like founders, Sam Altman, all these people have spoken there. But guess what? I gave the keynote speech. There were people that were so much more accomplished than I am. But guess what? Like my speech was the highlight of the event on that day, right? Because I do something deeply profound and meaningful for humanity. And in whatever we do, we must ensure that, we're inspiring hope through our work, that we're not just doing something that gratifies us or that is like a selfish ambition, that we're creating hope for the world and we're giving the world something new to believe in. And when you lead with that, everything else broadens out. So now it has gone from just that humanity thing to like an enterprise now. So now, I just launched a new company where I'm designing like luxury chessboards, all over the world. And yeah, as you walk, the way continues to appear. But as long as you set out in your heart that whatever it is I want to work on, right, it has to be something that would impact my people, right? Something that would solve problems, right, for other people, then you're on the right path. And if you stay with that, whether it's a social enterprise, whether it's an NGO, whether it's a profit organization, whatever it is, as long as you keep that in mind, right, you don't need to define yourself, through those lenses, right? As long as that is like in front of you, then you're going to do something truly remarkable in the world.
Yeah.
So what does the future look like for Chess in Slums Africa? I know we've spoken about AI and chess, and you're building a new chessboard. If you kind of want to speak about that more in detail, what can we expect from Chess in Slums Africa, going forward?
Our focus right now is to be the biggest chess institute in the world. In fact, we just finished the 3D modeling for it, so we're sort of like looking for property. So that for me would be like our ultimate legacy. So that for me is when Tunde stops being the hero of the story, and there's this institute that 1,000 children can pass through every year and come out on the other side as refined individuals ready for the workforce, ready to add value, to society and help build the prosperity that we all deserve. And that for me is the greatest legacy that we're going to leave behind, right? And it is not just going to be a school, right? In fact, I don't have the word for it yet. It's not a school. It's an institute, quite all right, but it's not like a regular school. It's just a place where ideas, children can come to learn and explore their imagination and explore their curiosity. So we're designing a curriculum, that sort of like encourages that, right? And I was inspired by this when I went to MIT, and I was taken to the MIT Media Lab, and I saw like these people are working on things that don't exist yet. They're working on things that like 10 years into the future, 20 years into the future. And I was just so completely blown away by that. And I'll tell you this, like MIT, Harvard, and Stanford, collectively, cumulatively, they're responsible for 70% of the wealth that America has now. NVIDIA, one tech company, is more valuable than the entire continent of Africa. Like, do you know what that means? Like, just think about it. Someone just woke up one day and started a company, and now that company is worth $4 trillion. Like, the entire economy, trading activity, everything that happens on an entire continent of like at least 1 billion people doesn't measure up to that. Like, this is something that should challenge all of us, like as Africans, as Nigerians, that like the true value of our education, the true value of our people, of our country, isn't in the national resource that we have, or crude oil, all of these mineral resources. It is here in the mind, right? It happens here. And it is what we can take from here and birth into the world, that the world considers valuable, that can solve problems. That is what people respect us for. And it is as simple as that. So this is how I think about the Institute and, what I wanted to represent, for the young people that will go through it and come out, more educated and prepared to create value, on the global stage. So that is what is next for Chess and Slums. And of course, like I said, we're now designing chess boards. We're designing chess programs. We're building an app as well. We just want to make chess a national legacy because we believe that it is more relevant now in this time, than ever before to raise a new generation of thinkers.
Yeah, amazing. I think you said a lot there. And I think what stands out to me is the power of the idea.
Yeah.
I think just about the value an idea can really add to, change a country, a continent, or a generation. I think building great ideas is something Africans and Nigerians really need to, focus on. And there are a lot of us there that have great ideas. It's just the exposure. And I think your program is doing that. You describe this institute a little bit like X-Men and Professor X and the campus of all the mutants.
Yes.
That's exactly what I see when I see that. But Tunde, we're on to the fun part of the show where we play this game called Plug or Pass. So it's kind of like a quick fire. Plug meaning you're with it. Pass mean you're not really interested. Like that's not your style. That's not your vibe. So the first one is traditional attire with trainers. So
Plug or pass.
Plug or pass with trainers.
That's actually my vibe. In fact, I think there's some guy on Twitter that like, we're always wearing this sneaker. This is the only sneaker that you have. I just blocked it. Because that's just my vibe. I just sneakers on native traditional attire. I think it's impeccable. But don't wear sneakers with laces. Just pure white or black. It fits on almost everything. So yeah,
fair enough.
Plug.
Some fashion tips there.
Fashion advice.
More on fashion, because obviously today you're not wearing the infamous fila.
Yeah.
So wearing fila on every single outfit. Plug or pass?
This is the only interview that anyone would ever see of me actually without my fila. I just realized it. So.
Exclusive, guys. You got to hear first.
And so sorry, what was the question again?
So wearing fila on everything.
On everything.
Everything.
Plug, definitely. I've worn a fila on a tuxedo before, so if I can do that, then there's no other fashion crime in this world.
So what you get yours, tailored customly by a specific tailor in Nigeria?
Yes.
How long has he been your tailor?
He's not a tailor actually. He's a creative designer. His name is Sam Otigba. So he designs my caps, and it has a cowrie in it, which signifies wealth. And the cap in itself even has its own story. So it's less of a fashion statement, more of an identity. So yeah.
I always thought it was a zip and like you could unzip
No,
it and
no,
put
no,
your money
no
inside.
And do you only travel with one, or do you take like
I
multiple?
traveled with a couple. But this time I only brought one. Yeah, and I lost it. So but they're sending another one to me from Lagos.
And your hairline's in great shape, so I think you're fine.
Well, I won't even say anything. Because the last barber in London, I was taking my airline back to Yaba. It used to be better than this, but we took it back to Yaba. So.
No, I can plug you in my barber. It's really good.
Please will. And if he does rubbish, I will arrest him. Arrest you.
And the last one, you've heard of the Netflix show Queen's Gambit, Amex.
Oh, yes.
So plug or pass, Queen Gambit spin-off in a Makoko edition.
Oh, plug. In fact, we did our own version of it. So the video is somewhere on my Instagram. Like the kids actually.
Boys or?
No. So it's like similar to what the Ikorodu boys do, but this one it was our own kids. They did like a reenactment of the trailer, and it was incredible. You should check it out.
Yeah, we'll clip that.
It was brilliant. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and coming to the end of the podcast, we just want to thank you, for spending time with us and sharing a lot of insights and gems. I think it's something that CJ and I would definitely have to be reflecting on and, thinking about, serving a purpose that is greater than you and not just looking out for money and, prestige. So in 60 seconds, if you could give just a message to someone out there, let's say someone that's currently struggling or trying to find their purpose in life, what would be your advice to them?
Okay, 60 seconds. Hi. So my philosophy for life is that it is possible to do great things from a small place. I believe all great things start small, from the highest skyscrapers to the greatest abstractions, to the airplane. It started with just a very tiny thing, a very tiny idea that expanded into this real thing that has shaped our world, our civilization. So the first thing is you must believe that all great things are possible, even while you're in a place where it doesn't seem like it. That's the first thing. The second thing is you need to have a lot of faith in your ideas, right? All these people that did these new things in the world, they did it not because they knew it was going to be successful. Nothing is promised. Like, it wasn't a given that it would work, but because they had faith in their own ability and they had a lot of courage to bring it to life, right? So that is one of the most valuable things that you'd ever need. You know, the kind of mindset you'd ever need to have. You don't need to be the smartest. You just need to be the bravest person to impress your ideas on the world, and to do it courageously in a way that people look at you and you embody that passion. It's hard for them to sort of like say no to you for that reason. So again, lead with your heart. Don't be afraid to put your ideas out there. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, to fail. You know, and in the end, I hope you create something truly meaningful for the world, and you give us all something new to believe in. So stay with it, and time has a way of revealing what truly endures.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Tunde, for the inspirational and courageous kind of message you're giving us today.
Yeah.
We hope for all the best with Chess and Slums in Africa.
Yeah.
And hope you get home to Nigeria safe and have a great event.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's lovely to
problem.
be here, and all the best as well.
That's the end of the Connected Pod today. Thank you very much, everybody. Like, comment, and subscribe, and see you soon.
next week.